Live Fit Podcast, episode 106, with Dr. and Janet Lewis.
Welcome to the Live Fit Podcast with Glenn Johnson, your resource for all things that contribute to good health. You will hear expert advice and interviews with leading authorities on fitness, food, fat loss, mindset, and the mind-body connection. You will find show notes, articles, and health programs at livefitpodcast.com.
Yes, it is time once again for the Live Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Johnson, your guide to better health. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and most importantly, share this episode with somebody you care about, because it just may make a difference in their health and their life. Because today I'm speaking with Dr. Stephen and Janet Lewis. They are a nutritional healing dynamic duo. Dr. Stephen Lewis and Janet both have a long history of helping people achieve their maximum potential. The doc stays current on the latest research pertaining to nutritional supplements and optimal health, while Janet is a certified natural health consultant with a unique perspective on alternative and complementary nutrition from studying with numerous leading national alternative health experts. You may think you are a clean eater, but do you know all the toxins that are getting into your body through the air and the foods you're eating? Even that organic food is getting junk in your body that you are probably not aware of. Little molecules and bits and pieces from plastics and pollution from all over the world. Well, the Lewises just may have a solution for you, so let's listen and hear what they have to say. Hi, Dr. Lewis and Janet Lewis. How are you doing today?
We're great. Thank you for having us on your show.
Somewhere close to perfect.
Wow, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for being here. You guys are a wealth of information, and when I saw what you had to offer, I really wanted to share it with my listeners, because there's so many people that are struggling with kind of the unknown things. They just don't understand. They can't quite put things together. They eat less, they exercise more, but it's just not cutting it for either weight loss or better health, feeling better, having more energy, etc. So, you know, the one thing that got my attention about you guys is that you do a blood test and you check out everything that's going on in a person's body, and then you offer real tangible solutions to help make some corrections. Can you start off by telling us, first of all, a little bit about yourselves, how you got to be where you are, and then we can go into that blood test question I just asked.
Well, I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and even though I was very, very busy as a chiropractor, I always liked nutrition, because I think between nutrition and nerve supply, the body can heal itself. And somewhere along the way here in America, we have lost the idea that the body can heal itself, because a condition or disease is not a lack of a yet to be discovered drug. It's lack of nutrients. And so we just kind of went further and further down the road to nutrition, and we found out the best way to find out what you need and what's missing is to do lab work. So we do it very, very inexpensively. And, Janet has her own story about what promoted her into being very, very successful. She's just brilliant. She blows away every doctor that comes into the office. She'll blow them away with her knowledge on nutrition.
Only because I've lived it and got to experience it firsthand. So that's sort of why we went so deep into nutrition, because of my own health issues.
Do you want to share that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat here. You introduced it. I have to know. The suspense is killing me.
Well, I'm in my early 50s, and at 35,
she looks 40. She really does.
I was thrown into a full-blown hysterectomy.
Yikes.
And had a lot of complications from that. There's the traditional medical route that they give you. I went from being a size 8 to a size 12 in 1 year. Couldn't move, couldn't get off the couch. Told my husband I was sorry he married me, because I'm not that person anymore that he married.
Wow.
It was a big spiral downward, and I didn't, at that time, we didn't have the access to the lab work, and I was doing nutrition, but the nutrition I was using wasn't actually strong enough to move anything. It was good quality, but it wasn't actually moving any kind of lab values. And we found out about doing the lab work and teamed up to do that. And by doing that, we took the guesswork out of what was missing, because I was guessing at all kind of things I thought were missing until we did lab, and I saw now my thyroid's not optimal. Oh, I've got estrogen overload. Oh, I'm gaining weight because of that. So many different things in there. And when we put the good supplements in, the pharmaceutical grade ones, I actually went back down to my size 6. That was even less than what I was to start with.
And more importantly, she got the joy back in her eyes and the smile back on her face.
Wow.
So my whole goal for people is to take the shortcut. I hear a woman just have a hysterectomy, and I go right into, oh my gosh, let me help you out of this before the 5 years it took me to discover all of it.
Right.
Because there's such a big difference in how you're treated medically versus what you can do nutritionally.
And we're not anti-medical. They do some wonderful, incredible things. I mean, we have the greatest respect for that, but something's missing because, I always tell people it's the toxins in the environment. And, I can quote a lot of the research done there. And things that are missing in our food, the quality of our food has gone down tremendously in the last 30 to 50 years, and obesity keeps growing like crazy. And
diabetes.
Oh yeah. And the hypothyroidism, most thyroid problems are hypo, and there are reasons for that.
Right.
Well, what do you think these reasons are? Are we going down just to all the various chemicals that work their way into our food that come out of industry and pesticides and all that stuff, and it's just kind of permeating us and building up in our bodies? Or is there something else?
You said that very, very nicely, correctly. And yes, there are other things. What people don't realize, most people think, well, I don't see it, therefore it doesn't exist. And we do have a lot of chemicals that permeate our food, but it's everywhere else. And so let me tell you a story, because people always say, well, I'm just going to change my diet. And
right.
I say, well, you have to change your diet, but that's not anywhere close to complete. So this story will illustrate why you should find out how you need to supplement. And all supplements are not the same either, but about a year ago, I had this organic farmer call me, and I just love this guy. He's from North Carolina. He says, Dr. Lewis, I've been doing your stuff 2 years. I feel incredible. I got first runner-up best organic farm within a year of moving to this new area. So he was a mover and a shaker and an energetic guy to get first runner-up best organic farm within a year. And he says, but I have to admit I haven't ordered anything from you for 3 months. And I said, well, okay, what can I do for you? And he says, well, why is it I feel like really bad when I don't take your supplements? And I said, well, did you read some of the books that I recommended? I always recommend different books. He says, no. And I sent him one of the books, and I said, and he's like talking to a little brother. So I really wasn't being rough with him. I'm just speaking in terms that he understands. And I said, read the book and don't call me and waste my time until you've read it. And I love this guy, and he loves me. And he calls me in 2 weeks, and he says, oh, my God, it's depressing how toxic we are. Polar bears have hypothyroidism. They have osteoporosis, and we don't spray anything there. He said, we're getting DDT from where they're spraying the mosquitoes from malaria in Africa. And he went on and on and on. I said, yep, I got it. You read the book. He says, but everything I eat is organic that I grow. And I said, well, that is a wonderful thing, but you don't know if it's 1 part per million molybdenum or manganese or 16,000 parts per million in the food that you grow. So although you're doing a good job, it's not complete. You said yourself you felt incredible when you took my supplements, and you said you felt horrible when you didn't. So
that's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's really, really a good thing to eat right, but it's not complete, not anywhere close.
So what are you testing for with this blood test?
Wow. The normal CBC, complete blood count, complete metabolic panel. Then we go into ferritin.
Well, when you go to your doctor's office, they generally run 1 to 3 panels of lab. That's about as much as you get.
Right.
And that's because they can't do anything more than that, because insurance companies require they have a diagnosis or suspect a problem. So
then you're labeled for life. So
then, because we don't do insurance, we can run whatever we want. So we do run like risk of heart attack or stroke.
C-reactive protein.
Right.
A1C, 90 to 120 day blood sugar. Ferritin, cause stored iron. Too little or too much can cause all kinds of problems. Vitamin D, urinalysis.
5 parts of the thyroid.
Yeah, 5 parts, not your normal TSH.
cortisol to see how your adrenals are, because a lot of people are stressed out, but you need to know whether they're high or low. And, that way you know what to give someone, because we see a lot of people that'll go treat themselves at the local health food store here, and it's like way off of what they should have given themselves.
My question about that is that the cortisol levels will fluctuate throughout the day. So is there a particular time that somebody's supposed to give the blood?
Yes. We tell them to do it before 10 a.m. We try to get the morning cortisol levels.
Good.
And then, what we're looking for is optimal ranges on the lab, because as America gets sicker and fatter as a nation, those ranges on the lab are actually getting bigger because insurance companies are behind those labs.
They're seeing what's common in America, but common is not normal.
Right. And if they can move the ranges a little bit bigger, they pay less.
That's funny. I tell my students and clients this about body fat, because you see some body fat scales will say it's healthy to have a body fat of X, Y, or Z depending on your age, and it goes up with age. And I tell them there is no reason that you should have or are more healthy with more body fat at the age of 60 than you are at 20.
Exactly.
You're exactly right, and
they're doing they're doing that more for vanity, so people don't cry and feel too bad about themselves as the age tends to bring the body fat up.
Well, a lot of old age diseases aren't old age. It's just because you've had another 10 years of accumulating toxins and you didn't have enough nutrients from your food for your body to detoxify. There's so many levels of detoxification, and you have to turn them on.
So what if somebody has hypothyroidism? What would you recommend?
Well, first of all, with our 5 different tests of the thyroid, and that's not even complete, there are different supplements. You have 2 different B vitamins that are extremely important in changing, iodide. You have tyrosine, which is an amino acid, which makes you feel better mentally too, because stress, anxiety, and depression can be part of hypothyroidism, but it can be part of everything else. And the common denominator is always GI tract and inflammation. If you've got a hypothyroidism, you have a GI tract problem, and that's for the most part where Hashimoto's comes from, is gluten intolerance. So,
and how are they determining that it's hypothyroidism? Are they just running TSH and getting that, or are they looking at free T3, which is the TSH is your brain getting a signal, and most doctors only run that, and then they tell somebody, "Oh, you're hypothyroid." Right. Well, that range is so big; it's like a 0.4 to a 4.5, and anywhere in there you can be considered okay.
Well, and the interesting thing is that just measuring the signaling unit that says produce more. It doesn't measure how much is actually coming out.
Right.
Exactly.
That's why
T4.
That's right. That's why when we run lab, we run free T3 to see what the thyroid's really getting, and the T4, which is the other part. And then we run something called a T3 uptake, because if it's beginning to go low, then that's the bad estrogens taking over and messing with thyroid function, just like the polar bears now have.
And it can be as simple as last week I bought a new pillow, and I slept on it one night, and it was so toxic I started to throw it off the bed, and Janet took it back, and the store said, "Yeah, we've heard about that." Well, pillows and mattresses are full of fire retardants, and that's one of the estrogen mimickers, and that's why men have low testosterone. We have half the sperm count versus 50 years ago because of these estrogen mimicking plastics, phthalates, pesticides. So real quick story. Wow. One time, this doctor came in one time, and he wanted to talk to us, and we weren't there. So I told the secretary, I said, "Make him an appointment." Now my lovely wife Janet says, "I do not want to talk to him." I said, "Okay, I'll take care of it." She was adamant. And so he comes in. He's a really sweet, nice, mild-mannered, soft-spoken, very intelligent, good Christian man. And he's shaking lab at me and says, "You're getting our patients well, and we don't understand what you're doing." And I said, "Well, God's a lot smarter than me and you, and we're both trying to help people. You're doing it through medicine." He's very good. I admire him. And I'm trying to do it through, giving your body natural things. And so I stuck my head out the door and said, "Janet, would you get so-and-so's lab?" And she brought it in. It was a mutual patient between me and this medical doctor. And I said, "Okay, now that you're here, would you explain to this doctor the thyroid?" Now, keep in mind, she told me she didn't want to talk to him, so she gave me the look.
I've seen that look.
So she said, what would you do with this patient? He said, it's my patient. I haven't done anything. Her TSH was over a 3. And Janet says, if it's not down around a 1.5 or below, that means she's getting the signal. It's not being used, and she's going to be overweight and a little bit depressed and stressed and thyroid crazy. And he said, yeah, I noticed in my practice it has to be under a 2 before they can ever lose weight. And she said, what would you do with the T3 uptake? And it was a 27, and it's flagged as a problem at 23. And he says, nothing. I wouldn't do anything with a 27. She said, that's estrogen dominance from the plastics and pesticides. And she's going to be overweight. She's going to be thyroid crazy, and she'll have no desire for sex. And he uncrossed his arms and leaned in and looked into Janet's eyes and says, can I bring my wife in to see you?
Again, experience.
We have fun with this. And that's one of the key things to getting healthy is you have to have the correct mind. You have to find something to be happy about. You have to find something to be grateful for. You have to speak more positive than you speak negative. And you have to have the courage to stick with it.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a great point. I love that line. You have to have the courage to stick with it. And before we started speaking on the interview, you said something about people will try something for a while and then they'll have a bad day and then they just give up, as if everything's supposed to be easy. That's good for you. And if it was easy, shoot, everybody'd be fit and healthy. But as a friend of mine says, it doesn't have to be easy. It just has to be worth it. And I completely agree.
That's true.
I give examples like this to my clients, and I'll say something like, you know what? I don't like taking a shower. And they look at me and they kind of gasp and maybe a little murmur. And then I say, I don't like brushing my teeth. And they, I'm like, but guess what? I do both of those things at least once a day, generally multiple times, like with the brushing, because I like having a clean mouth more than I dislike brushing my teeth. I just think it's a nuisance. It's not painful, it's just a nuisance, but I do it because it's well worth it. And that's also how I feel about many forms of exercise and eating healthy and getting enough sleep. If it was up to me, I would never sleep. But yes, it's necessary, so I do it.
That's a really good analogy, and I tell people, I said, when it comes to our health and reading on the internet and getting a half-truth that's distorted or some parts are deleted, I said, we've become like a nation of men with a remote control, because a man doesn't want to know what's on TV with their remote control. They want to know what else is on, and that's why we channel surf.
Nice.
Yeah, if you're a woman, you're going, yeah, that's correct. I just lost my man card by saying that
one. Nice. I've never heard that one before.
Well, I'm full of Stevenisms, as Janet would say, so hope it's motivator.
You talk about sticking with something. Most people don't realize with natural health, it takes a minimum of 3 months to make changes in the body, and then it's a month for every year you've been sick.
Oh, my. That's a long time. Who could possibly be that patient and stick with the right thing without payoff for that long? That's impossible.
Well, you begin to get hints. I gave a talk at Natural Grocers the other day on hypothyroidism and adrenal exhaustion. And I said, most of the experts will agree if you have adrenals that are exhausted or hypothyroidism, whether it's medical treatment, natural treatment, or both, sometimes you need both. It can take 2 or 3 years to rebuild these organs, because detoxification's slow because you take out X amount of chemicals per day, but the environment's putting them back in. So the net gain is actually very small. So you just kind of have to stick with it.
Now, how are these, how are these toxins freeing from the different body parts, the different organs and cells and tissues?
Well, that's one reason it's hard for people to lose weight, because the body insulates a lot of these chemicals in fat cells itself. And if you don't have the different detox pathways going on, your body's reluctant to let go of fat. There's different pathways of detoxification through the liver. We focus a lot on the liver because liver's like a woman. If mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
The hits just keep coming over here.
Yeah, they are. Boy, all the Stevenisms. I had no idea. Stevenism's greatest hits.
That's right.
You have methylation, sulfation, glucuronidation, you have the P450 pathway, and probably a lot of things I don't understand. I tell people I'm not a chemist. I took chemistry, but I didn't understand it, or I just passed the test. But nutritionally, I know what to do to get your body revved up. Of course, you have to have the pure, clean water. Drinking tap water is like a bus coming by your house with total 42 people in the bus, and it only holds 42. Tap water is so full of contaminants, it can't pick up any more contaminants as it's flushed through your system. So you have to have the clean water, because water is the universal solvent. So you just have to consume water. People say, I don't like water. I say, well, you're really sick if you don't like water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to drink it anyways. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So one question I've had is, if you free the toxins from the fat cells, it gets into the bloodstream and then goes into the liver. So let's say a person's losing body fat, they're burning body fat, they're doing what they can to get healthy, exercise, eating right, and all that. Aren't these toxins going to maybe lodge somewhere else or do more damage on their way out?
Maybe you need my train story.
I think it's a perfect time.
or are you including something that helps conjugate them?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, what happens is, as you're trying to detoxify, and we have many people that come in with that same scenario. It's like, I'm working out and doing all this stuff. I'm not losing any weight. The first thing I ask them is, how many meals a day are you eating? Well, many of them will say, I'm having 3. Okay. How many bowel movements a day are you having? 1, maybe 1 every other day.
But my doctor said that's normal.
Right. There's your toxins that have begun to gather that aren't coming through.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. And I tell people, if you're eating 3 meals a day, that's like having 3 trains that come through a tunnel. How many should come out on the other side?
And I've had RNs, nurses, and doctors of different types say, well, 1. Well, if you got 3 trains going in the tunnel, you only have 1 coming out.
You're going to have a big clog up in the tunnel.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where all your toxins are. They're expanding. The colon's getting bigger, and all the fecal matter's hanging around, and all of that leaches out to organs.
So, you ask, you use the word conjugation. I like that. We're going back to chemistry. Mm-hmm. The liver has the job of taking these molecules and twisting them into something that's safer. And it does that with the 16-hydroxy, the 4-hydroxy, and the 2-hydroxy estrogens. And the 16 is the tough one. It conjugates it, and it's excreted from the liver through the bile into the small intestine. And then if you don't have proper elimination, as Janet talks about, and you don't have the proper probiotics, and that's a tough one to get, the right percentage of probiotics, you have to stick with that program. These safer estrogen compounds are not excreted, so the bacteria, the bad bacteria, actually turn them back to the 16-hydroxy, makes them harmful. They get reabsorbed through the small intestine and colon, and those are the ones that are very, very responsible for many of the cancers that you hear about.
Right. Not just colon, but anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Especially breast, ovarian, ovaries, uterus, testicular, and prostate cancer. Here's the mindset of America. I had a young man that was 20-something, and he'd already lost 1 testicle to testicular cancer. And again, we don't treat diseases. We just put nutrition in the body. And he didn't really want to take any supplements, and his mom and dad kind of stuck their head in the door like, please, please, please convince him. He said, well, my doctor says he hopes it doesn't come back. I said, if you have a weed in the garden and you don't change the condition of the soil, or the weed's going to continue to grow. He said, of course. And I said, if you don't do something different, what are the odds that the cancer is going to come back, and you might as well kiss that other one goodbye?
And hoping ain't going to stop that weed from growing.
Yeah, hope and faith is a really, really good thing, but unless you have action behind it, we've become a nation, we're more knowledgeable because of the internet, but we're not doing more. It's what you do is what counts for results.
Well, I also kind of think we're dumber because of the internet. We have the information available, but we don't need to retain it because it's so readily available.
That's true. I just didn't want to say it.
We don't have to use our minds anymore because it's just right there all the time.
Well, one time, Janet and I were in Hot Springs, and she wasn't feeling good, and she takes even more supplements than me. And she wasn't feeling good. I went on to sleep, woke up the next morning. She says, I checked with Dr. Google and I have prostate cancer. And I said, well, I think I'm okay as far as I know. And so,
wait, Janet, you said that?
I did. Because I was making a joke. I was like, by the time I figured out what my symptoms are, it said I had prostate cancer. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. That's a medical or a natural marvel.
It is. I thought so too. I thought, no wonder I felt bad.
It's a self-guided tour to death. Yeah. So I tell people, stay off Google.
Yeah.
Find somebody you trust and feel good about, in your spirit.
You got to be careful about that. I can't tell you how many disagreements I've had with somebody when they tell me that they saw a certain thing about nutrition or exercise online somewhere, Facebook or their brother told them or somewhere on Google. They don't even know the site. They just know they searched on Google, and it's not Google's answer. It's, Joe Blow who wants to sell something.
Right.
So how do you guys feel about organic foods? Is it necessary with absolutely everything or just certain foods?
I think it varies because some fruits and vegetables have more pesticide sprayed on them. We get organic as much as we can. We just got the natural grocers, which is totally organic, which is a good thing. I mean, Longview's not that big, only about 85,000 people. Mm-hmm. Although we do this all over the country, thank goodness. Is it necessary? It's not complete, but yeah, more is better. I think if you do the organic, and I'm kind of anti-grain for the most part.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel about? Well, first of all, let me ask you, why are you anti-grain?
Well, yeah, I had this debate on a very large podcast. Another guy's podcast has 120,000 listeners, and they're into farming and permaculture, and they're very good about taking responsibility. And I talked about genetically modified wheat, and some of them took me to task and says GMO wheat does not exist. And I said, well, I know technically they say it doesn't, and I quoted the sources. This is being grown, this has been found, and we have up to 40 times more gluten in wheat. And, the low number on that is 4 times more gluten. And as we get less and less digestion and the gluten causes a reaction, we're getting more autoimmune diseases again. It's going back to the GI tract. And I don't treat diseases. I'm a chiropractor. I don't treat diseases, but why are more diseases happening now than when they were when I first got out of school? We're a much, much sicker nation and more obese. And it's not that people are just gaining weight, but that lends you to a much higher risk of stroke, heart attack, cancer, diabetes, and stress, anxiety, and depression. Who is not stressed? Only the people, that follow a good mindset and spiritual inspiration. So, it's not that I don't do grains, but I've cut them back maybe 80 or 90%.
Very nice.
Well, you can tell when you do because you have a lot of gas, bloating, belching, irritable bowel.
I had one piece of pizza last night. One small piece.
Yeah.
And what it did to me last night, we will not talk about.
Well, that goes back to that thing I was saying about doing things that are good for you. It doesn't have to be easy, but it has to be worth it. And it sounds to me like that pizza just may not have been worth it.
Absolutely right.
And I know it up front. I just look at it and go, no, I'll pick my poison somewhere else.
Yeah, it tastes good at the moment, but if you're paying for it for the next 36 hours, I don't see that as being worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people I don't like taking supplements, and I have trouble swallowing, whether it's physical or psychological, and I dump pills into a drink. Janet makes me a drink every morning full of all kinds of nutrients. But it's the little bitty pain of taking it versus the great big pain of not taking it. It's like, well, choose the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, exactly. Just have to have the courage to do what's right.
Courage is a good word. I like that.
So how do you feel about animal products?
We get a lot of vegans and vegetarians that, like to be treated here. I think they're fine, but they need to be pasture raised. I had chickens that were fed only non-GMO organic grain, and they were very, very free range. We had 24 acres at that time for them to roam me. And of course, they'd get up and dig up Janet's flowers. So they'd stay around the house, which we didn't like. But I think free range is much better. And I even did a TV commercial about how a free range organic egg is so many more times more nutritious than a regular egg. But,
well, you can see it in the yolk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We try not to get meat from the confined animal feeding operations unless there's no other choice, and then we have to limit what we consume.
So as far as health goes, you see no reason not to eat animal products, or would you limit it, or what? There's a lot of people that are doing the paleo or paleo-esque diet.
Right.
And, there's some people that are very much against that, and others that think it's the greatest thing.
I think there's, some of it goes back to your blood type. Like the O, we find that the blood type O seems to need more meat, can process meat better. But then you get people that are like me that are A's. They're original farmers and gatherer type people that did the gardens and things. I do better with vegetables and less meat. So I think the blood type does play into it. They have that eating up for your blood type. I don't think that's exactly accurate either, but parts of it are.
Yeah, parts of it.
Yeah, I did an episode about that. I had somebody talk about that book, Eat Right for Your Blood Type.
Right.
And what I found funny about it is I'm A negative, and I believe it says that I should be pretty much vegetarian.
Right.
And my wife, it says, should be pretty much a carnivore. Now, she really dislikes meat. She likes dairy, but she eats meat, but she really doesn't like it very much, and yet it says she should be a carnivore. I like meat much more than her. I'm not saying I'm a major carnivore. I'm an omnivore, but right. It steers me in that direction as eating primarily animal products, which I think is funny that it kind of, our intuitive nature takes us in a different direction than what the blood type is supposedly saying.
Well, I think a lot of it's got to do with your digestion of what you crave also.
That's
because
true.
Like for myself, I have really poor digestion. I have to take digestive enzymes of all different kinds just to break things down. And I think innately, if you have a hard time breaking down meat, you don't want it.
Right.
Well, that's what I tell people. I have a guy in Virginia that said, the best thing you've done for me is I can eat a good steak without throwing up. I said, well, it's just lack of digestive enzymes and probiotics. And although they do a little bit of the same thing, they're not interchangeable. And I said, well, I know we're doing more than that, but that's something that you can tell. And so many people go by how they feel. They say, well, I don't feel. I said, yeah, but you may not feel the conditions leading up to a heart attack, or you may not feel cancer for 20 years, but what you feel shouldn't really get much of a vote. You have to invest in health, because if you don't, disease is going to come up and grab you by the butt. And, I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. We can still call this podcast clean.
And I prefer to talk that way. I think a loud, brash man is just a weak man's imitation of trying to be strong. But they say I'm a little bit, I'll have little quips and analogies, but they say I'm kind of by nature soft-spoken. I think that's the stronger man that can be quiet and still get his point across. So
absolutely. Well, I like to have fun here, so not only do I want people to be entertained and keep their attention, but why not enjoy life along the way?
Yes.
So it's funny you said that about eating meat and throwing up. I know somebody who became a vegetarian because that happened. He thought he was allergic to meat, which I had never heard of before and tend to disbelieve. But when he eats it, even small amounts, he gets really sick to the stomach, and a little bit more amounts, he throws up.
Yeah, it's usually lack of hydrochloric acid in your gut that breaks the meats down. And what is the first thing they give you at the doctor's office, or what do you see all these people having now?
Omeprazole or some sort of
acid reducers.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one problem I've had from my clients is when I talk to them about nutrition, they start eating more vegetables, which is great. Pretty much everybody could stand to eat more vegetables, but they experience sometimes extreme GI discomfort, gas, bloating, just full, feeling horrible, and it's really a demotivator to continue eating like that. Now, it does lessen as they continue to eat like that, but is there anything prebiotic or probiotic that they can take with or before to lessen that?
Well, the probiotics, yes, but, it goes back to enzymes. And the reason we don't make good enzymes is because we are so full of, the plastics, the pesticides, and heavy metals we've known about for 50 or 75 years. We haven't even taken care of those. And now we have maybe 100,000 times more plastics in our system than heavy metals. So, you can take different types of digestive enzymes, and sometimes the GI tract will heal and you need less and less of them for some people. Well, our digestive enzyme, for example, has cellulase in it, which helps break down the cell walls of the vegetables and fruits that you do eat. Mm-hmm. I would start there, and probiotics are always good. And I tell people, there's so much information about probiotics. If you get 70% of the right type in your GI tract, and again, that takes some time and effort to do, you'll start losing weight. And a lot of the probiotics will help with serotonin levels, dopamine levels, norepinephrine levels.
Think sleep, or if you're not having sleep, that's the problem.
Or just being happy. It helps those neurotransmitters actually go from your GI tract to your brain. And most of the happy hormones or neurotransmitters, they start out in the GI tract. So when you're stressed and anxiety and you're depressed, it's usually not your brain. It's not a lack of some drug. It's a lack of proper transport from your GI tract. It's always GI tract and inflammation.
And what a lot of people don't understand or even know maybe is that when you are stressed, your GI tract slows down or even shuts down, and that's going to stop that. Well, it's not even going to start those that signal getting up to the brain. So if your GI tract is shut down, then your body's in a stressed state, and it's nowhere near the rest and digest and recover and be happy state.
That's very true. And, the thyroid is so incredibly important in GI tract motility, in the conversion of sugars and carbohydrates and fats and proteins. I'm a little bit more paleo primal type. I like high fat. But it has to be good fats. I'm not afraid of animal fats if it's not from a confined animal feeding operation. But, I've read a lot about the Eskimos, and they had almost no antioxidants at all, and they did real well on high fat. And I don't think that's ideal. But so I asked a guy last week, he just had a heart attack, and we saw it coming. But he was talking about anti-fat. The people, whoever they are, started demonizing butter in 1953 and put us on margarine, which is a big contributor to plaquing and heart disease.
Yeah.
I said, do you think a diet with 53% fat would be bad? He said, oh, man, that would be devastating. I said, mother's breast milk is 53% fat. He was like, I said, correct. Now it has to be good fats.
Yeah, that's some good fat there. We should all be drinking it.
Right.
We're even seeing babies now that are being put on acid reducers because
get out of here.
I can't tell you the amount of doctors putting these babies on acid reducers for digestive problems.
And we have a lot of the doctors that send people to us too. It's amazing. They'll come here and buy some different things for, one guy says, well, your reputation down at the hospital is you can fix a person's cholesterol without doing drugs. I said, I'm a chiropractor. I don't prescribe drugs. That's, it's not my training. It's not in my scope of practice. But I have a lot of MDs that shop here, and they're really good people doing the best that they know how, and they do a lot of really good things. But, as I said in my talk the other night, well, we're putting babies on soy-based formulas, and I know there's research that says soy will make you young, rich, and good-looking, but there's a lot of other research articles that said soy is devastating to your GI tract, and we're giving little babies that and wondering why they're throwing up all the time.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I don't wonder, but this is fascinating stuff. So, Janet, you're a nutritionist, and Doc, you're more of a supplementist. Is that
chiropractor by trade and nutritionist always?
Okay. Yeah. And so you definitely recommend that most people, if not everybody, take some form of supplement just because of the environment we live in. Is that pretty much it in a nutshell?
Yeah, most of the experts will agree on 5 things. They agree on a multivitamin, and I promise you they're not all the same. They agree on a probiotic. They agree on a digestive enzyme. They agree on fish oil. And yeah, I know there's controversy about that. I will always take fish oil. And then they say fiber. And I say, well, I can do without the fiber. If you're eating enough of the good vegetables, you're getting enough fiber. And I would replace that with vitamin D because, again, we don't convert sunlight to vitamin D like we did 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So what would be the one or two action items people listening could take right now to improve their health?
Well, I would fill out our health survey and get an opinion. I mean, I like to look at the lab and I'll say, well, yes, you're within normal limits, but these normal limits cover the 400-pounders that make the internet for being strange. So these reference ranges are not realistic for optimal health. I like to look at it. I like to see it. I like to know it. And
a great multivitamin is a good place to start.
Right.
How can somebody know if it's a good one?
That's a good question. On lab, you can actually tell because we have people that'll take a multivitamin, and then when we run their metabolic panel, there's a line on there called alkaline phosphatase. And if it's if the body's pulling the calcium and minerals that it needs from the bones, alkaline phosphatase will many times go lower. And when they're on a good multivitamin, that it starts to come back up. So sometimes the alkaline phosphatase will be way too high or way too low, and a good multivitamin will help bring it back into range.
Well, how can people tell? It's really tough because everybody's pushing their products. And, I listened to a podcast about a former FDA inspector that says one of the biggest counterfeit operations in the world is supplements.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, but it said on the label, and I said, well, we were in China, and I could have bought 10 Rolex watches in a stainless steel case, which was aluminum, for $100. And I'm sure they were really Rolexes. And people said, no, they weren't. I said, yeah, neither's your multivitamin a real quality one either.
Right. So basically, the first step and the second step should be getting that blood test from you guys. How can somebody do that?
They can go to our website, acutabovenaturals with an S on the end.com. I have a health survey there. It's short, but it helps Dr. Lewis better determine what needs to happen, as far as what he needs to see for lab, I guess is a good way to put it. He generally will call you himself and speak to you because he likes to understand what's happening with someone. And then from there, he can make recommendations about what he would suggest.
Janet says I'm a good listener for a man. I'm not sure what she means by that.
He's the female in our relationship.
Well, I like chocolate, so.
Yeah, me too. Well,
I try to keep it simple and keep it easy and keep it, happy where people can feel comfortable. It's all about being a good experience rather than a stressful experience.
But generally, if they need lab and they don't have any, if it's over 3 months old, it's usually old news. But if they need new lab, there's generally a lab close to where they live because we can order lab throughout the United States.
Oh, good to hear. Good to hear. Well, I'm definitely gonna do that because I am dying to know what's going on inside my body. Not that I'm experiencing any problems, but I don't take any supplements to speak of, and I eat pretty healthy. But as you said, you never know. So you'll be hearing from me.
Awesome.
I'm going to have that link for acutabovenaturals.com on my show notes page at livefitpodcast.com and some more information and notes from this show. It's been wonderful talking to you guys. I wish you the best, and I can't wait to hear what my results are.
Well, you made it a pleasure. I mean, you're very comfortable. And again, I think the people that follow you are very well taken care of because you have one of those clean spirits, and we appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Well, you two have a wonderful day, and I'll be talking to you later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Live Fit Podcast. Please subscribe and share with someone you care about. Read show notes, articles, resources, and learn more about our weight management programs at livefitpodcast.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and always remember to live fit.